Hello there. I know I've already done this tutorial, but since now I have a better microphone, I wanted to redo it so that it's easier to understand. As you can see, I have simply set up a system to read the arguments and print them out. I'm not going to handle them at all. Now I've also added this find CeltreSDL2cpp.cmic file that I've slightly modified for this tutorial so that it's easier to find even if it's not installed. And we can, the CMIC file depends on all of these other CMIC files, and with that we can start working on the tutorial again. As we had seen previously, we are going to need, first of all, the Messagebox. The CeltreSDL plus Messagebox file. Why? Because the Messagebox file is going to include the Messagebox data file, which is in turn going to include window, which is going to include in turn surface. So we have basically everything we need to create a window and a surface in it. Now we also need to include the starter. The starter is going to take care of initializing SDL and quitting it when we are done. And we will also need the timer. There you go. With that, we will be able to create our first basic eventless SDL window. So the first thing we need to do is to initialize the SDL system. For that, we are going to create a try-catch block, which is going to start by creating a starter from CeltreSDL starter, which is going to take, first of all, the initialization flags for SDL. I'm going to initialize video. Just like with SDL, we can OR several initialization flags just like this, right? But for now we only need the video. We are also going to be initializing SDL image, since this is not simply an SDL wrapper. This is a full SDL wrapper. It includes SDL image, it will include SDL network, everything. So for now, we are going to simply initialize the JPEG because we are not going to really use any image function, so we don't need to initialize any PNG or TIFF images, and with that it's enough. With the starter, we can now go ahead and say, if we read here in the starter, alright, we can go ahead and do init. Oh, I'm really sorry, these don't go here. The starter constructor doesn't initialize anything, so we will do that in here, in the initializing part of the function. As you can see, we can also initialize a subsystem and check if any subsystem was ever initialized. Now, with that out of the way, we can go ahead and create a window. Now, the window constructor does take several values. It first takes the window title from a string. So we're going to say CeltreSDL++ tutorial 1, an eventless window. A pretty long title, but it doesn't really matter. Now, it will ask for the position. We can give the position in two different ways. A direct way, which would be something like CeltreSDL point, and then we would specify, for example, 2020. That would set the window in the 2020 point, given that 00 is the top left corner of our screen. But we can also use a window position flag so as to set it in different places. I'm going to center it. Now with that, we can give it the size, which is going to be 800 by 600, and now it's going to be asking us for window flags. So CeltreSDL window flags. Let's allow high DPI and CeltreSDL window flags. Let's make it shown. As you can see, just like with SDL, we can OR these flags. Now if we check it here, we will see that it will also take in brightness, whether it's bordered or not, and whether it's grabbed or not, with some default values. So I'm going to set the brightness to be fully bright, to the full, since this value is going to change from 0.0 to 1.0. I'm going to make it bordered and I'm going to make it grabbed. That's an SDL thing. So with that out of the way, we can go ahead and create a surface that I'm going to call ScreenSurface. I'm going to get this surface from the window so that we have that window surface. With that, we can update this surface, and now we can create a timer like this. Alright, and tell the timer to delay our window creation by 5000 milliseconds. If we go back here, we'll see here that surface. Let me see where it is. Surface is going to give us a CeltreSDL surface, and we will be able with that to update the surface. Another thing I want to do though is to create, let me show you, a surface that has a determined color. For that, we will be using the SDL field rectangle functions. As you can see here, in CeltreSDL, these, instead of being 2, are 3. Why? Because SDL, when you tell it to take in an SDL field rectangle function, you can pass in a null rectangle. In C++, this is not very common, and what I've done has been creating another field function that is not going to take in a rectangle, which will in turn completely fill the surface, which is the same functionality as passing a null rectangle to SDL field surface with rectangle. So I'm going to be using that. ScreenSurface.fill, and this takes in a color, which is also in SDL. Now, CeltreSDL colors are not the same as SDL colors. SDL colors work from 0 to 255 for each value. CeltreSDL colors use an OpenGL approach, and they will take in values from 0.0 to 1.0 in floating numbers. So let's create a white screen. Now, this SDL color function takes also an alpha value, but this alpha value is going to be set by default to 1.0, so we don't need to pass it. Now we can catch some errors. First of all, I'm going to catch the error of the message box itself, alright? Because if that fails, I'm not going to be able to show any message error anyway. So message box error and E. and then I'm going to say std see error, unable to create a simple message box. Oh, I'm sorry, this does not go here. I have to catch a standard exception error. Standard exception error. Why is that? Because every single SDL error is going to be using the standard error system, as you can see here, through runtime error. So if we catch that, we're going to create yet another try and catch block, which is going to catch any exception with the message box error, with the message box. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense, because the message box is also included there. So what we need to do is to create auto box equals to CeltreSDL message box. If we go to this class, we'll see that we don't need any parameter for the constructor, and I'm going to be showing a simple message box, but I will not give it a window. So I will be using this overriding function instead of passing in a null window like we do in SDL. So box.show simple, and now this takes in the message box flag, which is CeltreSDL message box flag, and I want it to be an error, and then I want it to be I want it to have a title string the fatal error, and then I want it to show a simple a short message, which is going to be also standard string. I'm going to say there was a fatal error plus another string that is going to be e.what. And just in case, I'm also going to print it, because the message box can also fail, and I need to make sure that everything's printed. There was a fatal error. As long as the SDL works and is installed in the system, the simple box should never fail. Now I'm going to return from here and exit failure. Again, like with the worst quality microphone, I don't care about handling errors at all, because this is not the objective of the tutorial, but to show the CeltreSDL functionality and how to create a simple window. And so I'm not going to be bothering with error handling. I'm just going to print it. So if we build this, it should work. Let's see make work. Surface hasn't. Let's see. I chose the wrong function. So instead of update, it's going to be, let's see, blend. No. Pixel uses data, blend, substretch, fill rect, zero clipping, zero. Yeah, it should be blend. Let's see. let me see what the function was. Alright, so this is not what I was looking for. I was looking for the update surface function. So what I needed to do was to update the surface in the window, of course. Silly me. So with that done, we should be able to see a simple window that is going to stay there for 5 seconds and that is going to have a white background. My computer is so slow, I swear to God. It's starting. Alright, we never saw it, so let's try it again. There you go. That's the window. It stays there for 5 seconds and then closes. Alright? Because this is a build, it's quite slow in the beginning. It has to run a couple of times in my computer. Now we can see it properly. It has our title, it's centered on the screen, it has an adequate size, and the color of the background is completely changed. Now if I was to change this color to 2.f instead of 1.f, there's going to be an error that's going to be shown in that simple message box. I wish this computer was a little bit faster, because it has built this like long ago, but it doesn't want to go into the linking stage. Alright, an error should pop up, runs, there you go, telling us there was a fatal error, colors must be in the range of 0, 1, and there's a print right there. And if we change it to be like, for example, 0.4, 0.2 and 0.7, we'll see that the color changes. Alright, same with the other values. So this is basically now like SDL. So for example, if I set this flag to be hidden, then before updating the surface, just like with SDL, I will have to show the window, right? Which is going to look here. Now, if I were to not show the window, we would never see it, of course. Here, everything has been started, but we're not going to see it because we have never shown it. So basically, this is like SDL, as I said before in the other tutorial. And it's meant to be used in a modern C++ style, so as to be able to make it look good, to be safer too, because you see we are not using any pointers, we are not needing to handle any memory, anything, because the library is going to be doing that for us. For example, window is going to take care of destroying the window when the class is out of context. The starter is going to quit SDL when it's out of context, etc, etc. So with all of this done, we have our first tutorial. I hope you liked it, I hope you learned something, and hopefully it's going to push you into using this library, which is safer than using C, especially if you are using C++ and don't want to mix it with C-style functions. See you in the next tutorial. I'm almost done with the events. I hope I will be able to get the second tutorial out for the end of this year or before that. See you in the next one.